And I am. We are recording.
Mhm.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuxedo Town Board special workshop on Tuxedo Farms, trying to move this project forward. It is June the 2nd, 5:04 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Uh, I'll recite the pledge. You guys could just silently join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Those words become more meaningful to me every day, but let me not digress. Again, welcome to our meeting. Um, we'll be focusing this evening on the design guidelines and requirements for the Tuxedo Farms project that includes the smart code. And that doesn't mean much to you right now. It should by the end of this meeting. I'd like to just take a brief minute. You could see we have a lot of people working in different teams. Um, I'll start with the related team led by Greg Goucher. Greg, could you wave? And there's Greg. Uh, Greg is the executive vice president of Related. Did I get that right, Greg?
Yes, yes, thank you.
And would you introduce a couple of people from your team, Greg?
Absolutely. I'm not sure I see everybody. I see Dylan Norris from Related.
Dylan,
Uh,
wave your. There's Dylan. Dylan always has a tie on, so you could. Dylan
Brett,
is
Brett, Brett Schwartz, our trustee land attorney. Um, and let's see, Lisa Higgins from Lennar. Manish Chadha, our architect for the Commons. Mark Townsend from Related, a design manager. And let's see, Mike Finan from Langen, UTech. Mitch Newman from Lennar. Patrick Dunleavy from Hart Howerton, and Paul Milana from Hart Howerton. And I think that's it. Did I miss anyone?
Did you say Mark Townsend? I don't know if we said
Yes,
that.
Mark Townsend. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, did we kind of introduced Ashley, but she
Oh,
gets another crack
sorry,
at
Ashley.
this.
Sorry, Ashley. I didn't miss you. Ashley, of course. Ashley live from AKRF.
And how do they figure into this mix? I know we have attorneys, architects, and
So AKRF is the environmental consultant. So they've been the master of the tech memo, which is all things environmental impact.
excellent. And we have Sean Hoffman, the town's engineer. Hi, Sean. And of course, board members, myself, Ken English, town supervisor, Michelle Lindsay, deputy supervisor. We have Maria May, town council person, Deidre Murphy. I don't know if her camera's on. I think she has camera challenges. Deidre Murphy, town board member. I'm sure we'll have uh, Jay Reichcott joining us if he hasn't already. And
Yes.
there's Jay. Bonnie Franson, a town planner. Did I miss anybody? I see we have John Bagno, our planning board chair, attending our meeting.
Larry
Kelly,
Walensky.
Larry Walensky, our attorney from Jacobowitz and Gubitz. Um, we have Deborah Villanueva participating. She works in our planning department. Uh, and anybody else? Kelly Spranger, Marissa Dolbaum, fantastic town clerk. I think we got everybody. All right, we're ready for business. So, as I said earlier, Greg, tonight we're going to be looking at the design guidelines and requirements and the smart code. I think maybe Brad, you and I discussed that we're not going to do a page turn, but I think it's uh, maybe Mitch that's going to give a global overview. I think we're starting with the design guidelines. Is that correct, Mitch?
Start with a smart code,
Oh,
then we'll move
smart
over to
code.
the design guidelines. Yeah.
Could you just in a couple of sentences say what's the purpose of a smart code and why anybody should be interested in that?
Sure, I'll take a crack at it. Brad, step in if I make it too simple. My understanding is the smart code is effectively the zoning standards, and that sets up how you design a community based off of the zoning standards and what the uses are permitted in the different zone districts. And part of that or related to that are the design guidelines for some of the minutia. And I don't mean to downplay the minutia, but I mean things like the architectural standards and the landscaping standards. So they get their own sections. So that's the basic way I look at it, is the smart code is the umbrella of the zoning, and then the other parts, the landscape and architectural guidelines, are separate subsections that get into a little bit more detail.
Do you
Check.
concur with that, Brad?
Yeah, no, I thought that was a perfect summary. And when Mitch refers to the overall zoning, I think that covers both the use of the land, so right, what kind of buildings are allowed where, as well as the bulk requirements, dimensional requirements. So when Mitch is about to show table 1 to the smart code, it's going to look a lot like a table of permitted uses and a table of bulk criteria.
Well, with that, sorry to put you on the spot, but see, just trying to prove we got the right people on the screen here. So please take it away, Mitch.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone giving us their continuing attention on the many meetings. Just for the fun of it, though, I did go backwards and take a look at the first presentation we had as a group where Lennar was introduced, and that was all the way back in January 13th. So we've had a few months of working together efficiently, collaboratively, and I think we are in a great spot where we have moved ahead to the current version of the smart code and design standards that were submitted towards the end of last week. So our goal tonight is first, I'll give an overview or a high level view of the smart code. And it's going to be somewhat similar to the way Ashley did it with the tech memo. I'm just going to focus on a few sections, but rather than have a separate presentation slide deck, I actually just took the smart code and highlighted in green and yellow a few things that I want to focus on, so that as I'm talking about it, you can see it right on the screen. And then I'm going to turn it over. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mitch, for anybody, and Marissa could verify this, these documents were uploaded to the town's website. So if you're trying to follow along on the screen, also note that Marissa and you could confirm that these documents are readily available on our website. So sorry for that interruption, Mitch.
No problem. And that's why we chose, myself and Lisa chose to use exactly what was uploaded with just some highlights added, so that we weren't showing you anything that's not already been available. And as I said, I'll turn it over to Lisa, who'll go through the design guidelines for architectural and landscape standards. And then we're going to turn it over to Mike from Langen, who's going to give a quick overview of the performance standards, which are mostly very technical and engineering in nature. So I don't think it's going to be much of a dive there into those details, but Mike will have an opportunity to talk about that. And that'll be our wrap up for tonight. Along the way or at the end, you're welcome to ask any questions or stop us to dive into any details. So with that, Ken, I have permission to share the screen.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, good. There it is. Hold on. Yeah, there's always that moment of a stomach ache when you have to find what you're looking for to share the screen. All right, can everybody see the smart code with some yellow and green highlighting?
Can you make it a little larger?
Yeah, of course.
There you go. Oh, perfect.
That helped. All right, let me
Yeah.
just center it a little bit. All right, so as I said, I'm going to give that high level overview of the smart code and focus on a few things that we've talked about along the way, or that I think you might want to hear a little bit about along the way. And my guide is I've used yellow where I want to highlight the fact that we're in a topic, and then I've used green to focus into what I want to talk about. So what do I want to talk about in the table of contents? Why would anyone want to talk about the table of contents? Simply to focus on the fact that one of our goals in revising the smart code has been to slim it down and simplify it, make it a much more user-friendly document so that we as the developer, eventually applicant, can follow it, and you as the governing body, and then of course the planning board can follow what we are supposed to be doing and what the different requirements are. So that was our goal, and you can see that right here. We have table 1 and table 8. So the first question is, hey, what the heck happened to 2 through 7 and 9 through whatever? And the answer is that they either became unnecessary or they became subsumed in either the text of the smart code, or more importantly, in table 1, which we're going to see in a few minutes. which I will tell you, I think of table 1 as the heart of the smart code because it's that big old chart that puts it all in one spot. I believe easy to find, easy to read and follow. So with that, that's the quick overview of what we're going to be looking at. So in the smart code, it starts off with what's the authority here, which Ken is kind of the question that you asked a couple minutes ago. And the smart code is a document that sets forth the standards and regulations applicable to this community. And most importantly, it's the lot and bulk standards, the lot area, yard requirements, height limitations, etc. And unless otherwise specified, the smart code will supersede the other applicable town laws and regulations. So who works with the smart code? And that's the administration and section. And we'll get to waivers in a second. So it just plainly says the planning board will administer the provisions of the smart code, and they'll administer it in the context of the subdivision and site plan process. But also in that process, they have the authority, the planning board has the authority to grant waivers that might come up. But they can only do so if they find justification for the waiver on the following 5 specific grounds, and that's 5 is A through E. First would be that the site design or condition being considered for a waiver is because something is being rendered impracticable to follow. The second is there cannot be an environmental impact due to the waiver. Third, we can't be creating a nuisance or an unsafe condition because of the waiver. Fourth, it still has to result in the ability to build a home. And then finally, and I'm paraphrasing everything, of course. And then finally, the waiver that's requested has to be consistent with the design intent of the preliminary plan and the special permit. Despite that criteria, under no circumstances will the planning board have authority to waive any of the following. They can't waive the building use, nor can we ask for that waiver. They can't waive a building height requirement. And then even in those matters where they can or are allowed to grant waivers, we created mufflers or caps so that we can't ask for nor can they grant lot dimension waivers in excess of a 10% deviation, and so on and so forth as you go through setbacks, coverage, impervious coverage, etc. So in addition to creating standards for a waiver, we created limitations on what can be waived.
So
And
Mitch, on some of those variations, I guess those are necessary because no matter how you want to standardize the parameters of building, you get out in the field and you might find something just requires a slight deviation. Is that the
correct.
general intent?
And that's exactly it. We could hit a field condition that simply doesn't allow us to comply with a certain element, or we may just hit a scenario where we are at the end of a run and a lot dimension just doesn't work because it just doesn't engineer correctly, and we could be in a situation where we will have to forfeit a lot. So we'd like the opportunity before getting to that point to show the planning board that we'd appreciate the opportunity for a waiver. And of course, they'll have the ability to say yes or no, but first we'll have to show them that we meet these 5 elements of criteria, but in no event going over these caps. So yes, Ken, it's just to create the opportunity so that if there is a waiver or a deviation, we're not restarting this process back at the town board, but we're working it out at the planning board level as best we can cooperatively.
Thank you.
So a couple other elements I want to focus on is now you're gonna see table 1, and I'm gonna highlight it a lot because, as I said, that's the nuts and bolts of this. Provisions for building types, see table 1. Transect zones, see table 1. General provisions for building placement, table 1. Lot dimensions, table 1. Buildings placed in relation to boundaries of their lots, table 1. Lot coverage, table, etc. I keep going and going on. So that's my point, is to show that to the maximum extent possible, we kept referencing back to table 1 so that that's where the reader needs to focus their attention. Next area I want to focus on is provisions for parking. So as we drop down to the parking quantity standards, there's various parking ratios. For a single family detached home, and then we have the other different home types, it's 2 spaces per home, except where there's no on-street parking, then it's a 4-space minimum. But if you can remember the Lennar homes that you looked at, the single family homes, they all had a 2-car garage and they all had a 2-car driveway. So quite frankly, this is a layup, the 2 spaces per unit. We do anticipate that we're always going to be in the 4 category with 2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway. On the duplex homes, which we know are in the active adult section, the stacked townhomes and the townhomes, it's a 2-space minimum, which again is for the most part a layup because we have a garage in a 1-car garage in the stacked townhomes and the duplex, and the townhomes is a 2-car garage. So we should at least be able to exceed this in the townhome scenario. In the multifamily homes, it's 1.5 spaces per home or per unit, which would include the available garage and driveway parking that's under design. And then we drop down to a couple of provisions applicable to that. We do want to encourage electrical vehicles, and we want to be encouraging ourselves in that regard. So any parking space that we reserve for electrical vehicle charging would count as 2 parking spaces. And then with regard to visitor parking, we did want, I'm just being as open as I can here, we did want to create a standard. However, when we started trying to find the street parking to create the standard, we just weren't comfortable with coming up with an exact number at this point in the planning process, in the land planning process. As the engineering proceeds, we'll be able to fine tune this. So for now, we simply said street parking to be provided to the greatest extent possible. We did certainly come up with a couple 300 or so on-street parking spaces, and we do hope that we're going to get it closer to 450 at the end of the day. But at this point, we couldn't come clean with an exact number and an exact ratio. So that's why we said to the greatest extent possible. And we'll be, of course, showing those plans as they mature to the planning board in our site plan process. And then we did add that the planning board does have waiver capability for parking ratios on a case-by-case basis. So we have a little bit of room built in there.
Mitch, can I ask a question?
Of course.
This is Michelle. When you're talking about the street parking, are you talking in the single family home and townhome area as well as the commercial area, or are we just
No,
separate?
we're talking, no, wherever the roads allow on-street parking. And if we, and I'm going to jump ahead because your question goes right to the, so excuse me while I'm scrolling and making everyone dizzy, goes right through the table 8, which is the roadway assemblies. It's called thoroughfare assemblies. But in each of those cases, the roads are designated with a code. And then it talks about whether you can have on-street parking or not. So for example, here it says parking lanes, both sides. And in this category, MR 5026, it's none. And I'm just going to scroll a couple down for the heck of it. Again, we get to parking. This says one side only for the street type. This says one side only also. And if we continue to drop down to the, again, sorry for all the quick scrolling, to the road hierarchy plans, you see where those various roads that we mentioned, you see where they are listed or color coded, and that would give you, if you wanted to dive in, exactly where on-street parking could happen. And as I said, when we asked Langen, okay, take this and now tell us how many parking spots land on this road. As I said, they were able to come up with a number, but we're not confident enough because we didn't have driveway locations locked in yet. So we then got uncomfortable with making an affirmative presentation as to how many we could achieve. So that's why, as I scroll all the way back up, that's why we left that. Gosh, now I gotta find it.
Oh, I see. So when you said 300, that's just, did you
I'm just, yeah, I would, don't hold me to it, but
estimate of,
yeah, it's a few hundred spaces will be available on street. as you just said, and thank you for adding that, primarily in front of single family, duplex, stacked, and townhomes. And if possible, multifamily, but there's a large part of the road network through the commons, which are the public thoroughfares where on-street parking is limited.
Okay, thank you.
So, but we can get into that in more detail when we get into hardline engineering, or if you want us to break out a further study of that, we can. I can't promise you it'll be any more exact at this point. So, as I said, the thoroughfares are now continuing down. The thoroughfare standards, the roadway standards are shown in those road hierarchy plans we just took a quick look at, and table 8, which is that multi-page list of digging into each street type and what's available on each street type. And then I also wanted to focus on, now we talk about landscape standards. This section, of course, got minimized, and it simply says refer to the landscape guidelines. When we get to architecture, again, slimmed it right down, refer to the architectural guidelines. We added a provision for streetlights or public lights, and effectively said that with the exception of development in T5 and 1 and T5-2, which is really where the commons will be located, lights will have to be dark sky compliant, and we have a lighting expert that'll make sure that we live up to that in our engineering plans to minimize the uplighting using light fixtures that are full cutoff optics, et cetera, et cetera. And even in common area parking areas, we'll be looking to use adaptive dimming controls on the lights. So the idea, of course, in this final sentence is all effort shall be made during final design to minimize the visibility of lighting from adjacent neighborhoods. And you're going to see this repeated again in the architectural standards that you'll hear about from Lisa in a couple minutes. And then repeating the thing I've repeated too many times, zoning and bulk chart, we just said see table 1. So as I now drop down, oh, before we get to table 1, we have the definitions. The only thing I want to highlight here is something we talked about early on. We wanted to make sure that the definition of a multifamily building was changed, and we added a definition of stacked townhomes so that those two weren't together, so that they're clearly separate uses, separate building types. And then this will only ring true to, I think, 3 of the board members. We also wanted to preserve the opportunity for a home we really haven't talked about a lot, but we call it the 12-plex condominium. It's a 4-story condominium building that has, you guessed it, 12 units in it. And that was the one Michelle and Deirdre, thank you. It's Deirdre or Marie. I was going to go one way or the other. But Michelle, Deirdre, and Ken had seen. Ken saw it in construction. Deirdre and Michelle actually walked through it with me for the first time. So you'll see we preserved the opportunity for that, and we added it to table 1. It's not shown on any plans as being designed anywhere, but we wanted to at least keep the option because it does create an opportunity for density, and we believe it's a really desirable home type with its own individual garages. So now dropping down to table 1, and I'm going to minimize this for a minute. I know it's probably impossible to read, just to show you the general breadth of this. So table 1 is the zoning and bulk summary chart, and it lists building types, where those buildings are located in the T zone. Then it has home types, where we just start describing what those building types are, lot sizes, lot coverage, height, setbacks, and goes on and on. And the idea was, well, this is quite a large chart. It really covers all the bulk standards. So we're pretty comfortable that we came up with something that's user-friendly and very comprehensive, and we do appreciate the input we have from your professionals to get us here. One thing I did want to focus on is something Bonnie had brought up, because we have these NAs, or not applicables, in the columns for lot sizes and coverage. And Bonnie, I don't mean to be speaking for you, but the question was, how do you have not applicable for a lot size or coverage? And the answer was those are only NAs in the context of those building types or use types that are condominium in nature, meaning stacked townhomes, the 12-plex, which we talked about, and the multifamily and mixed use. And the idea, as we have in this note with the two asterisks that you keep seeing around, the idea is that, and I'll just make this a little bigger because I'm sure people can't even see what I'm saying, is that the homes showing NA with that double asterisk for lot size and coverage are not fee simple. They're condominium in style, so they wouldn't have individual lot lines. And if they don't have individual lot lines, they don't have ways to measure coverage per each of those buildings. So that's why it fell in the not applicable category. That was the only item I was looking to highlight in table one, but as I hope your professionals will agree, it's quite comprehensive in how we've addressed all the bulk standards. And then as I
I
drop
have a quick
down,
question on that, Mitch.
yeah, of
So,
course,
like anything that has NA there, I understand the concept that it's not a single property owner, so to speak, uh, sharing a lot because, like in the 12 plex, there's 12 families sharing the lot.
right.
If that's in simplistic terms, but there's still standards as to how far this building needs to be away from adjacent buildings and things like that. It's just not broken down to individual units. Would that be correct?
Oh, absolutely. And Ken, that's a perfect question, and I should have gone a little farther. As you go, there's of course still a building height column for all of those. There's a front yard setback, a side yard setback, primary another side yard, a rear yard, et cetera, et cetera. So all the other facets of bulk standards are there. It just didn't work to have kind of a multifamily style building listed with these requirements because they may be more than one building on a lot in their
Thank you.
condominium form. Right, thanks.
Does it say, or indicate, the minimum width of a building or maximum width of a building for the stacked townhomes and?
Yes, and Lisa, I think that's built into the architectural standards. Am I right or am I going the wrong way?
Mitch, I'll have to revisit that when we scroll through,
Okay.
because I believe they're there as well, but I don't want to say that with certainty until we're looking at it.
Okay, yeah, we definitely talked about it. It's in here somewhere, and either we're gonna find it. I'll just talk slowerly so you can look for it, or we'll find it for you later.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And we already talked about table one, of course, is all the bulk standards. Table eight, why did we keep table eight, not just make it table one? Simply because we were all kept calling this table eight. So we said, forget it, we're just keep it as table eight, which is those roadway details that we talked about. And there's many of them. There's many different road types, which is why there's two different plans worth of the road hierarchy plans. And lastly, we have the three sheets, which is the regulating plan, and then the two road hierarchy plans. This first one focuses on the spine public road network, and the next one focuses on the rest of the different variations of roads in the community. So that is the high level review of the smart code. I hope it was helpful, and we can go through anything in any detail or address any questions now or down the road. But otherwise, I would turn it over to Lisa, and she'll go through the design standards, which are the landscaping and architectural standards.
I just wanted to make a point, Mitch, about the streets and which are the responsibility of the town and which are the responsibility of the homeowners association. If that's a parking lot question, that's fine.
That's
Uh,
right. Let me drop down to that plan, and I'm going to ask Brad or Paul or Patrick to jump in if I'm saying this wrong. This road, let's get my spacing right. This first road hierarchy plan, the second to last plan that we looked at in the smart code, this is designed to be the public road system, meaning the roads that ultimately the town will own and maintain once they're built and accepted by the town. And the rest of the roads, which are shown here, I know it's really hard to see. You can see the colors here in the legend, but it's hard to see them here. But if I zoomed and zoomed, you'd start to see the colors pop, which match what's in the chart. And those are the private elements of the road network that the homeowner association, once we've completed the roads will be taken care of and maintaining.
I think I remember 12 miles of road that were town, if might be right, or uh, because when we were talking about the garage space needed, uh, then it became apparent that no, the town's not responsible for all of the roads. What is that additional? I'll use the word burden, but obligation might be more appropriate.
Yeah, I don't remember that number. I'm not saying it's not right. Ashley, if you have it handy, you can throw it out there. Otherwise, we can catch up to it and get that information submitted
I
separately.
don't need the number exact, but I wanted to point out to anybody paying attention, and certainly town board members, that it's not every road that's in here. It's now the ones that you have on the screen now, color coded. The spine road, the emergency road that goes from uh, the west. Yeah, right. You got it right there. And then the main spine road that connects the two Route 17 entrances.
Right. Yeah,
And
right.
so,
Total
yeah.
of 12.8 miles.
See, I knew I wasn't crazy.
All right. There you go,
12.8.
Ken. I'm gonna
That's
write
because
that
you
down.
got the answer to a question right.
Come on now. I could
Okay.
horse, dog. Wait, well, that's it.
Never mind. Okay, but
There we go.
sorry.
Thank you.
All right, Ken, I'm giving you full credit.
Thank you.
That's the
All
best
right.
I could do for you. All right, so that this plan shows that public road network, 12.8 miles, and then the second one dives into the HOA, to be HOA maintained road network. Okay. All right, like I said, unless there's anything else,
I got a couple if that's
Yeah.
okay.
of course.
Thanks. Well, let me start at the beginning. First of all, the usual overview question. We're going to have a lot of these presentation documents. If these are not things that are included in the stuff you've already sent, can we get a copy of the slide deck from tonight to put on the website for people following at home?
Yeah, so let me just jump to that one, Jay. What I put up on the screen and what Lisa's going to put up is exactly what was submitted. We didn't change anything except we highlighted some things, and you saw I draw on some things, just for the purposes of the focus of my presentation. So everything that we are showing you is already submitted, but for my self-serving highlighting. So really don't
Okay.
have to submit anything else.
Very good. That's fine. Thank you. To sort of follow on with that, there's I haven't counted how many 100 pages there are of this stuff that's been recently submitted. Perhaps Lisa has that answer as well. But is there I've started to page through it, and there are a lot of things that have not changed. Is there have you got a sort of a red line markup that shows where the changes were made, which will help facilitate the review process? Or
Yeah, we do not.
I'll get my pencil out.
Yeah, the problem is, and every problem can have a solution if we work hard enough, but the problem is we started to do it as redlining, but it became so cumbersome, it wasn't, you couldn't follow it.
Right.
So we said, you know what, let's just do this fresh. Let's do it clean. We did redline along the way when we were going back and forth with Ken and Larry and Bonnie because they wanted to see what we were doing as we progressed. But I'm not trying to complain, and we'll do whatever you want us to do, of course. But yeah, that would be rough to take this back from where it started.
No, and that's fine. If it was something that was handy, that's great. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I have two screens. I can do this. I'm not worried about that. Okay. A couple of actual technical points then. As you pointed out, we got a table 1, we got a table 8. And so what happened to tables 2 through 7? And they got subsumed into other things. But in 7 years or whatever, when they're going back to this, someone's going to spend a lot of time looking for tables 2 through 7, etc. So I would recommend we do one of two things. Either well, you could do that. That's easy.
Yeah.
Or we could do a tables 2 through 7 intentionally omitted, or my favorite word, reserved, as if we're saving them for something special. But somehow note that it isn't an accident.
That's the right way to do
Okay,
it.
I'm just writing my own notes here, so.
Yeah, which is fine. You don't have to publish that. Okay, so there's that. And then the other thing that made my ears perk up is this idea that we're going to do dark sky compliant lighting except in the commons, which is, of course, where all the big parking lots with the big floodlights are. And I understand it may be more difficult, but what can we do?
And right, so our thinking on that was probably obvious. That's going to be where the public is invited to recreate and go to dinner and hang out at night and get an ice cream and whatever else is happening there. So we got a little skittish when we thought about lowering the light intensity there. So I don't have a good answer, but I can certainly approach our lighting designer and see what we can do.
We should do something. It's understood. I mean, like at the baseball field that you're going to be building for us, there are going to be lights.
They shut off at a certain hour.
But they shut off at a certain time, right? So obviously, until curfew, it's okay if the most of the lights are on in the plaza, but after that, perhaps we can have
We definitely do more on
a
this.
nightlight setting.
I think we'll be self-policing on this, frankly, because if anywhere, the rental apartments we need to rent every year, and so we can't have people, being blinded by the light from the parking lot outside. So I think that we will be very careful about designing this so to minimize. Obviously this is a safety issue, right? This is primarily a safety issue.
Of course,
And
of course.
so we have to balance the safety and bothering our own residents and everyone else. So it's hard to sort of put that describe that while it's at this time. But we are self-motivated to make sure it's as least intrusive as possible.
Understood. Thank you. That's all I got at this time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, then with that, we can come back to anything, of course. I'm going to stop sharing, Lisa. Where's my stop sharing button? Here it is. So I'm going to stop and then turn it over to you, Lisa. You ready to roll?
I am. Thank you, Mitch.
All right, thanks.
Ken, am I good to share my screen?
Please go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. Is everyone able to see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Before I go through some of the highlighted changes, I do want to say thank you to Bonnie, Larry, and Ken. I do believe that with their support and their input that we have been able to produce documents that we are confident provide clear guidelines and will allow us to build homes that work for us while ensuring the quality and diversity in products that the town of Tuxedo envisions for these products as well. Understanding that it is a lot of information to digest, I am following Mitch's lead in just highlighting some key components that address some of the early comments of the board, as well as comments provided by the board professional during these small group meetings. And my highlighting is not nearly as sophisticated as Mitch's, so I apologize. You're just going to see yellow. So for the architectural style, we have taken the preset list of architectural styles that was previously provided, and we've replaced it with brief descriptions and visuals of the products that we intend to build. So this modern Tudor style that you're seeing here is reflective of the design elements that are intended for the use within the Commons neighborhood. For the Tudor elements added for transitioning, this area includes the design elements intended to create that feathering effect from the Commons to the surrounding neighborhoods. As you may recall, we touched on these elements back on the April 25th meeting, which some of those elements include the addition of the gables, which have the steeper pitches, as you'll notice here, the vertical alignment of the windows, and then we added that material variation up in the peak of the gable to mimic that material variation that's shown in that modern Tudor style. The next component here is just generalized as additional building styles. And as you'll see, this provides comprehensive visual representations of the elevations that we've now presented on several occasions to the board from our existing Lennar, New Jersey library.
And Lisa, this isn't every one of those homes. This is just, as you said, a representative sample.
This is, yes, representative. Thank you.
Okay.
As you can see, many of these elevations also provide some small similarities to that style that we're utilizing modern Tudor for the commons, such as vertically oriented windows and changes in materiality, which assists in creating continuity while still continuing to provide individuality within the homes situated throughout the entire Tuxedo Farms area. Just kind of scrolling through to show you all of the pictures that we have added for those various elevations. Under the windows and doors section, I just wanted to touch briefly on how we added illustrations here as well to depict permitted window types and also enforce that, once again, that vertically proportioned panes for the windows. For the garage doors, I do want to touch on how we've made some modifications to hopefully quell some of that anxiety that was originally brought forth on those 16-foot wide garage doors. That first feature that we added is the hardware to delineate the two bays and give them more of that single garage door appearance. Then we added raised panels onto the garage doors.
Lisa, can I ask you a question about this section? It's Maria May. You have if provided in a couple of places, not just in this section, but in the roofs also. What does that mean, and who provides what, and why do you have that there?
Do you have a specific page that's on? It might be helpful to
It's page
utilize.
9. Page 9 is there's two of them. It's on A. It says windows are permitted to be single hung encasement vinyl windows with integral grills between glass if provided to match style of home.
So there may be for in that particular element, we would be saying that we are allowed to do those integral grills between glass. However, that may not always be the case with every product. So we just wanted to have that flexibility to provide them and then provide stipulations on how those can be achieved in the event that they are provided.
So the if provided was meant to quantify the grills.
Right.
That's suggesting that it's not a guarantee that they'll be there. Yes.
Right. So like we're looking at 9/9 windows here. We might have places where we've got, I don't know, 6/1 or some other division style that
To
may or may not
complement
have
that
it.
particular home, yes. And as such, with the shutters and trim over here, again, if provided, because it's not guaranteed that all windows will have those shutters or all windows will have that particular trim. So we just wanted to clarify that it wasn't going to show up 100% of the time. However, it will be scattered throughout the community.
So the columns in the porches is also, and the gabled roof also has that if provided notation.
Yes. So that also would indicate that it's not a guarantee to show up on every individual home. However, it will show up throughout the community.
Okay, thank you.
With the grills, is there at least some grills to be added, whether they're 9/9 or some other amount of panes? Is there a minimum? Will there, or
The
will there
complete
be some
design,
homes?
the complete design of all of the homes or buildings have not yet been developed to that level yet. So I can tell you that products that we have done in the past, we typically provide grills, but without our complete design, it's hard to commit to that at this particular moment.
But it's possible that a window, Lisa, or a series of windows would have no grills or no panes.
That is a possibility, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it on page 7, some of those stacked or multifamilies on page 7. Some of them don't have those. I see it.
So on this one, yeah, so this one here, our 3-story townhome, the one that was designed for a specific community to emulate the surrounding area, we did a more industrial look. So this only has grills in that upper portion, and then the bottom portion here has no grills at all.
Yeah, okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, bringing it up, Maria. While we're on windows, I'm just curious why you have only single hung, not double hung. I would think that, that's where the upper window doesn't move at all. You can only open the bottom.
That's correct.
So I'm just curious why.
Well, for us, we have designed that as a standard for Lennar, a specification, and primarily the purpose of going to the single hung is with the very strict energy requirements that we have to adhere to. The single hung windows actually do provide a slightly better energy. Sorry, let me just
Efficiency.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Than the double hung.
I'm just thinking safety wise. I mean, if you have kids, if you want a little fresh air, wouldn't it be safer to just bring the top
Those
window
windows are
down?
not, window glass is not guards.
True. Yeah, I understand that.
So
I'm just saying, I don't. Okay. Thank you for your explanation.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the next section?
I'm good.
So I just do want to touch back on the garage doors quickly. Where we left off was with the raised panels. And that's to break up the massing of the doors. And then we added those additional window lights at the top to further promote visual appeal.
wait, I'll jump in here since we're jumping in as we go.
Sure.
And I showed my wife this morning, and she said, "That's better." But can you go to the picture where you have the Tudor spillover or the Tudor mirroring? I don't remember what page it is, but it's
Oh, right
there.
here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
From a distance, that still looks like one door. I mean, it's better. So I'm putting in my plug. It's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I mean, 2 doors would be great. I understand why there are reasons why you only want one big door. Can you make that center post the same color as the surround so that it looks like a center post?
We can revisit the garage doors to see if there's something we can do to make them a little more, to give that better illusion of separation there.
Yeah, that, like I said, I understand there are limits, but you don't get if you don't ask. So I'm asking.
No,
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's fair, and I at least I'm with you. Let's challenge our purchasing department to see if there's a way to add a fixture or color or something down that center.
I mean, if it was just that you could do the color so that it was, darker there, then it would look like 2 pieces.
Well, my
Understood.
2 cents is when I built my home, my architect was saying, "Do you want a 16-foot door or 2 bays?" And my wife's backing up skills were considered, and she's on this call, and so I'm sticking my neck out. But we went with the 16-foot door because scrapes on the side of the car weren't
It
the
does
choice.
provide its benefits. It absolutely does. Thank you, Ken, for pointing that out.
So
Yeah,
I like my 16-foot wide door, but I
Yeah.
But
understand
we
it.
will definitely take a closer look at getting that aesthetic to be a little more pleasing if it's feeling a little lackluster.
Uh-oh, Lynn,
Also,
Lynn
maybe,
Kelly, I think, made a comment. Sorry, Lynn. Go ahead. Sorry, Michelle. Go ahead.
well, here, oh, right here on this page, obviously you do have some 2 bays, but even on sort of the middle one and the top two, there's the architectural division is more defined than in what we were looking at before.
I think it's really just a matter of the quality of these pictures versus the rendering that we were looking at before. You will see a little more depth and definition. And if you were to look at this in person, you'd see that same level of depth and definition, but it's hard to capture on that 2D rendering to the same level that you'll see it in real life or in these perspective drawings.
Yeah, because here, these two top ones and the one on the right in the second row, just seem more architecturally pleasing than the one.
I
above.
think, Michelle, I think it's because these photos that we're looking at here have shadowing, and they
Right.
took the shadowing to the level of the garage door panes, and it almost looks like a color. It's creating, that's my guess, but we'll definitely have our architect look at it.
Okay. Well, before you go to the next section, I did have a question, as you know, about the J channel. Can we talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that later? I'm fine. It's just that
Well, we
it's
can talk about
mentioned.
it. No problem. What is your concern with the J channel?
Let's see, it's under the windows and doors. It
Mhm.
says that on the side and the rear of the structure, J-channel surrounds are permitted except at corner lots. So it seems that, and I honestly don't remember. I remember discussing this ad infinitum in 2017. That's why I mentioned it. And so I'm looking for some guidance from our consultants or from you as to the appearance of J channel surrounds. And if they're only permitted on the side and the rear, but not where they're visible to the road, then it makes me feel that maybe they're not as architecturally detailed.
Well, there are benefits to J channel. It does provide maintenance-free airtight seals, which you won't get from, some of the other things that you would put surrounding your doors and windows. And there is an opportunity to do what we call like a restoration J that would give you that additional detailed profile around the windows that would mimic more so that exterior trim that you might be more accustomed to seeing. But for us, it is really just about providing as much maintenance-free, long-lasting products so that it keeps the community looking as nice for as long as possible.
Maybe some visuals would be great. Not,
Yeah.
you could send those, that I'd appreciate it.
Yes, I will get those for you. Any other questions before we move on?
Okay.
For me, thank you.
Gonna get back to my place here. Okay, under the roof section, I just wanted to briefly highlight how we have added, again, visuals, because it was very much emphasized to us that these visuals are beneficial for helping people to kind of visualize what it is that we're trying to portray. So we did add one for the roof overhang, where we do indicate that it must be a minimum of 6 inches within this area. And then we added this flush condition, which would only be allowable on those sides and rear conditions. It would not be something we would put forth on the front of a building.
So the 9/12 is relatively flat, right? I mean, compared to what we're seeing here. Do you have a visual of what that looks like?
We can certainly get one of those for you as well. We didn't put any visuals in here necessarily of the pitches per se, but we can certainly add those for clarity.
But Michelle, the 9/12 is steeper.
Yes.
Oh, right. That's right. Thank you.
Right.
I was going the other way. Sorry.
Right. It's that's okay. It's rise over run. So
Right.
if it's anyway.
Rise over run. Okay. 9
Yes.
inch up for 12 over. Okay.
A flat roof
Why
is
is
none
it?
on 12.
I'm sorry. Say that again, Jay.
A flat roof is 0 on 12. I mean, they're never. It's like a quarter on 12. But
Okay. So, all right. So I guess then my question is just a visual of the different roof pitches would be helpful.
Okay, we'll get those added in for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next point I wanted to touch on here is that fireplace provisions have been added to allow for direct vent fireplaces in all neighborhoods with the exception of the commons. And these provisions ensure that venting is placed properly to prevent high visibility on those street-facing facades. And we also still have the ability to do full height chimneys both in the commons and surrounding areas in the event that we do see a high demand for that particular type of chimney. Under exterior lighting, this is also something Mitch already touched on in the smart code, but I did want to point out that we've re-emphasized in the design guidelines here a statement that ensures dark sky lighting will be provided in those neighborhoods, excluding the commons area, which, as we discussed earlier, we'll take another look at to make sure that we're minimizing the impact to surrounding areas while still providing a safe environment in that neighborhood. Under the materials and colors, you'll see a reference here, and you've probably seen them throughout earlier parts of this document as well, references and then blue text telling you to go to specific tables. These tables have been simplified and streamlined to make locating the detail supporting the information within these particular sections easier to locate and interpret.
Exposure. Okay, so the 4-inch exposure on the vinyl siding. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not there yet, right?
No, that's okay. We're here. You can talk about it.
Is that a minimum or is it going to be the same? It
That
doesn't
is the
say a
minimum.
minimum of. So
You want us to add that word in there?
I'm sorry?
You want us to add minimum in there to make it more?
No, I'm just curious.
No, it is determined as the minimum, with the expectation that we can always increase that if necessary. But if you would like the word added in and it gives you more comfort, we're certainly happy to do that.
Well, yeah, I is the intent to use a variety of widths or exposures, I should say.
Well, again, we haven't gotten to the final completion design phase, so it would be hard for me to say with certainty what those may particularly, or those particulars would be. But based on what Lennar currently is doing today, that 4-inch exposure would be indicative of those products that you've had the opportunity to tour.
Okay.
So from that notion, Lisa, in current Lennar products, it sounds like you're staying 4 inches the minimum. Is there a maximum that you have currently in products that you build?
We typically use 4 inch as a standard. However, we are making some concessions on our current designs to adapt more of the tuxedo look and feel. So without having those designs finalized, I don't know what that end result will look like. And we would like to keep those options open, but I wouldn't, we would obviously do something tastefully. We wouldn't look to make these
So
big
it wouldn't be
obstructions.
it wouldn't be a 4 foot exposure, right?
Right.
So there's some kind of ground in between there that would be possibly expressible. That would just show that.
We can certainly take another look at that to determine what that min and max looks like to give you guys some level of comfort on that as well.
Yeah, I just think that a variety of exposure would just give an overall variety to the development, to, all the different styles of houses. If they all had the same, they would look, maybe too much the same.
I mean, we
Well-
do have other options for variations to give them looks of individual, homes within the community and provide that level of difference. But it's definitely something that we'll take a close look at and see what we can do to.
Thank you.
Okay, scrolling down here to page 15, our table 1, which you'll see referenced throughout the document, is exterior color packages. Again, excluding the commons, because we really are trying to give that a separate look and feel, but still give it some level of cohesiveness as well. But we do want that to be the wow factor of the overall community in itself. So we do give somewhat different attentions to that particular neighborhood. These color packages are what we are utilizing in our Lennar, New Jersey communities today. And you'll see that we have, I believe it's 12 or so different varieties or different, configurations of similar colors to give that level of variation.
How about in as far as the other specifications on these products? Like I actually have Timberline on my home, and just those kind of things, the specifications that go along with beyond just the color palette comparison.
So we do have the materials chart a little bit further within the document that provides a little bit of that information. We could take a look at that and make sure that it's
you can wait.
sufficient.
Yeah, thank you.
The next table we have here is table 1.1, which outlines the exterior color packages planned for the commons area. Let's see, we have, different colors for the wall and stucco, trim colors, window sash and doors. And these, of course, would be subject to availability and market demands as the community progresses. And, these conditions may change. The next table we have here is table 2, and this is the architectural guideline materials chart. And this is where we put a lot of that specificity with respect to the products, Ken. So if you find something that's not sufficient, certainly reach out to me. Happy to get some more clarity around things that maybe you want to see more information on. One of the things I did want to note here is due to, again, the longevity of the community projections for build out, we did add a little notation here that any material substitutions, whether it's due to availability or market conditions, would have to be equal or better than the approved materials currently outlined within the design guidelines today. Guidelines for building articulation have been incorporated to ensure that building massing is interrupted through building breaks, material change, or bay window projections. And there's a subset of that for the townhomes and stacked townhomes, as well as under the commercial and mixed use portion.
Hey, Lisa, while we're here, I want to get back to the topic that we were asked earlier, and I punted and said you would find it, and I think you did give me the answer in a separate text. So I wanted to throw that out there. So what happened is early in the process, Bonnie had identified that issue of how many homes can be in a building string. And I believe we had it here in the landscape in the architecture guidelines. And Bonnie's comment was, well, you should move that to table 1 of the smart code. And we sit here a little red-faced, realizing we didn't do that. We said yes, so that was half the battle, but we didn't get to that. So we do need to submit the revised table 1 to show that in terms of townhomes, I think the building string is up to 8 homes, and stacked is it 16 or 12?
16, which would
16.
be 8 individual stacks with 16 total homes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I remember talking about it, and we're so happy to agree to it. And then, Lisa, we did nothing. I'll say
And
I did
thank you,
nothing.
Mitch. I appreciate you taking the bullet on that one,
Yeah,
because I was going to wait until the end to take it.
Now, it probably was right here at an earlier
It
time.
was. You are absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to do that better the second time around.
The next area here that I just want to briefly touch on is the lookalike standards that we have created for the single family detached lots. To enhance the individuality of each single family home, we have added this lookalike clause in, which enforces variation within homes either directly across the street or on either side of the subject home. The subject home in these scenarios being that X. This clause ensures that homes within those A locations, which are these on either side across the street, and this exists in all these various conditions here, that they will not share elevations or siding colors with, again, that subject property. And to go somewhat further, there is a requirement here for the B homes that suggests these homes in this level of proximity cannot share the same vinyl siding color. So we are getting that individual appearance throughout a particular area within a community.
And these homes would all have one of those packages, right? The color palettes and with the various.
Yeah, so we
Sure.
would identify color packages, and typically what our sales folks do when they start to spec out these homes is they'll mark that up on a map so it's easy for them to identify what they've used and where and avoid any kind of replication.
So is that one of the reasons you have it so specified with, each one is kind of coded?
Well, it gives us that opportunity, as we've talked about before, we may only offer 3 types of homes for a single family, but within those 3 homes, we then have 3 separate elevations, which creates that illusion of 9 different homes. And then above and beyond that, adding in the variation of color packages really provides a unique and individual look and feel for each of these homes, despite the fact that the core of those homes is 3 particular plans.
Thank you.
Moving into our landscape guidelines, we did add a component on this particular general planting guidelines that not only specifies that we are not allowed to plant non-invasive, or we can only plant non-invasive materials. We then have a table 3, which is the representative sample list. And sorry, I'm just going to take a look. Oh, and out of respect for the extensive work that was put into the original plant list during the initial approvals, you'll see as we move further down that representative sample list, also known as table 3, is an exact replica of that original plant list that was approved back in 2015.
Could we encourage more native plantings? I mean, the plant list is pages long. And yeah, I realize they're all non-invasives, but it would be really great since Tuxedo is trying to be on the pollinator pathways to encourage, you know, you know, all of the pollinators to be able to have the shrubbery and trees and all the food they need as they move on up in their migration.
Yeah, we can certainly have another look at that and see if, you know, we can enlist the help of our landscape design professionals to pare that list down and ensure that it's more towards that native species.
Or at least maybe it's as simple as we just add the phrase in this 1A more or less that says, in addition, we will, we'll encourage the use of native plant materials. So that way we've captured the topic, and when we get to the actual landscape design work, we have a criteria that the planning board can say, okay, where did you encourage that?
Right, okay, that's good. And we have many groups in our town that are involved with the pollinator pathways. So we can certainly provide you with what we are focusing on. And it's approved by the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, which manages Sterling Forest and Harriman State Parks.
Okay.
So that surrounds you.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to look up the phrase pollinator pathway to get a little bit more familiar with it.
I'm happy to, I can send you information. I'm
There you
asking you
go.
to send me a
That
lot
would
of
be
information.
excellent. Thank you, Michelle.
I'm happy to send that to you.
All right.
Thank you. On this next one here, Bonnie actually got ahead of us on this one regarding the products where impervious coverage is indicated as NA on that table 1, and Mitch did touch on it, but again, to reaffirm that we will be adding some lawn or landscaped areas between and where possible on those particular products that don't necessarily have those coverage requirements due to being condo type buildings versus fee simple. The last thing I want to touch on in here is our home specific guidelines for landscaping. Given consideration to the vast differences in our home styles being offered, we added product specific planting guidelines that respect these differences. With home types such as the single family, duplexes, the farm lots, and I feel like I'm missing one. Nope, that's it. So single family, duplexes, and farm lots. We did add this additional area here that allows homeowners to supply additional landscaping that would be subject to the receipt of applicable homeowner approval, homeowner association approval, and follows that list that we provided on table 3. And that's to give them the opportunity to maybe provide some individual expression and, beef up their landscaping to a level that may be comfortable to them. And that does conclude my presentation on the guidelines for this evening. And again, I'm happy to take any questions that may not have currently arisen at this time.
Well, I have one if about the are we on that page? What page is this? Page 27. We could go back to that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Right. No.
It's just a little slow. I apologize. The
Okay,
larger
there you go.
files are
There you go.
not nearly as expedient.
Okay, so the stacked townhomes and the other, well, they're both stacked
Townhomes, rear
Okay.
garage stacked townhomes, and front garage stacked
All right,
townhomes.
so you were talking about how many unit or buildings or townhomes would be in a building. But here it's saying only one shade tree per building, and that would be at the side of the building. I mean, can you talk about this a little bit more? Is that because there's no space in front to put a tree? I
So
mean,
when
this
it
is
comes to
visual.
when it comes to these more densely populated products, it is difficult to get trees in those front yards because the utilities are running through there. And as trees mature, those roots can interfere with the underground utilities. So we try to be very cognizant of the long-term effects of doing something in the front yards.
Okay. All right, so that's why you have shrubs instead.
Yes, because their roots tend to be more shallow and interfere less with utilities.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for me?
This is Jay. It's more of a comment. In the back up to the head of the document, there's the list of other building types. Well, pictorial list, right? The images.
Yep.
And as you pointed out, these are other building types in the Lennar, New Jersey family. And they include not only, I mean, I'm not saying you're recycling images to fill up space, but they include images of buildings that we have flagged as being troublesome. And they include details that are sort of not in the revised, Tuxedo Farms look, or the signature Tuxedo Farms look. So, for example, 16-foot wide doors that don't have any central, not to sound like a broken record, but
No, that's a fair point. I appreciate you pointing that out.
And-
Our goal was to, provide with the front elevations that we have been, producing for you over the last few meetings. But you're right, we absolutely should have taken into consideration some of those design updates that were critical to you accepting our product. And we
right.
will
And
definitely
the,
put
and
that
the
in there.
reason I'm concerned is that, again, we all know what we're talking about now. In 5 years or 7 years, or next week, if I get hit by a bus, there's going to be a different group of people looking at these images and looking at this, this is the seminal document for this development, right? That's what we're putting together here. And so I would like to see only buildings that would be approved to be built in this development, in this, it's going to be the lookbook at the end of the day. So
Jay, can I just make a suggestion? 'Cause
Yes, sir.
Your point's a good one, and it really is something. You're right. We don't want to confuse the reader, because our goal is to make this easy and simple, not open a can of worms down the road. Could we be as simple as to add a note, and I guess it would be either at the beginning or the end of this section, that would, I don't know, I'm just, Brad will have to help me wordsmith it, but something that the images under additional building styles would all still need to be subject to the following architectural standards in the next pages, something like that.
that would certainly be would be better. And again, I'm an engineer, I'm not a lawyer, so yeah, I mean, sure.
I have a question.
I
So
don't
I
know.
have a question based on what Jay just said. So based on this exercise in which we're going through and we're basically specking out all the architectural guidelines. At this point, you will go away and then come back with final designs of which will be approved. Is that the next step here?
In connection with the site plan process at the planning board.
Well, so you're taking these designs then to the planning board, not to the town board?
Correct. That's in planning board purview, not ours.
Okay. So then Jay's point is correct, and we should really definitely take out anything that we have decided is not something that should be within the guidelines. Okay, thank you.
Well, so that creates two choices or three choices. One is we, as you just said, take out. So these, quite frankly, the first two at the top and the one in the bottom right, they all come out because they don't meet the garage door standards. My suggestion would either be one, what I don't want to do is update all these elevations to meet the architectural standards, at least with respect to garage doors, or two, to add that note perhaps in an extremely prominent place right next to where Lisa had the highlighting for architectural standards number 3, and just make sure that note is in the same font as the words additional building styles, so that it's right in the reader's face that these still need to be subject to the standards below. We might even go further, and we understand that certain of these designs do not, as shown. I know the wordier I get, the worse it gets, but I'm trying to figure out a way to avoid us either just knocking out half of these or going back and re-rendering them.
Well, this is Ken. I'd lobby to not knock them out because, we've been speaking about continuity based on proximity to the commons, which makes a lot of sense to me. We in one of the earlier presentations, we demonstrated visual uh, uh, line of sight uh, based off the commons. And, let's not forget that this property is more than 2 miles. I'm not even sure the distance, but many of these transect zones are way beyond visibility from one to the next. And I hope we're not trying to say that the entire project has to have this Tudor look to it, because I think that would absolutely destroy the variety that I've heard people lobbying for here. That, the age restricted community that would be the most southern portion of the development. I can't, I see no rational reason why it would have to uh, feather into the commons area if it's not even remotely visible. So that's my 2 cents there, but I hope it's worth more than 2 cents.
No, and I agree with you, Ken. I, I, and I think the answer is fine that, these are, it needs to be clear that these images, are superseded by the requirements of the design guidelines, right? Just because you see it here doesn't mean necessarily that you can build it.
Oh,
Okay,
and
if I
also,
can just-
if I could just finish my thought, Lisa, please. Is a neighborhood that's a mile and a half away from the commons that would be, from maybe a topographical reason, totally invisible to the commons. Um, Again, I think as you build out the different neighborhoods, there needs to be that the non-lookalike, I guess I would call it, clause that says, how we're ensuring diversity, but not that it's matching from the most southern end to the most northern end of the community. My God, I would be thinking
Absolutely.
that would shoot down anything of architectural diversity. That, no matter where it resides in this community, it has to be this narrow sect. That to me would not be productive. So hope in my wordage, Mitch, that was clear. But
I didn't get every word there, but yeah, actually Jay's word is the one I wrote down. Sorry.
wait a second, roll the tape back.
No, he said superseded, and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's the word." So,
Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to hopefully summarize what I think the big object of concern is here, and that's the blaringly obvious missing hardware from these 16-foot wide doors. Am I understanding that correctly, Jay?
No, don't get me wrong. 16-foot doors is not an easy fix for me. But for example, if you scroll down further into this list, when we get into the townhomes, for example, there is right there, the second image there, that's the townhome that was specially made to look like the industrial neighborhood it was built next to. That's a great idea. But we don't have that industrial neighborhood right next to us. And I'm not trying to stifle the architectural creativity of your team or enforce some sort of weird uniformity over the community. I absolutely agree with you, Ken, that different neighborhoods in this grouping should look like themselves, not,
That's
my
point.
concern though is that here are other, here are other housing types, and without some sort of further explanation, the next line that you automatically fill in, that can be expected to be seen in Tuxedo Farms.
I'd
And I'm
be
not sure.
I'd be adding to that, Jay. You know, in I'm sorry, all the different neighborhoods names aren't popping into my brain, but uh, in this transect zone, in this neighborhood, this is what's permitted, as opposed to, it's a uniform standard throughout the whole development.
Absolutely. And I mean, and as you go around Tuxedo, and I'm assuming that your design team has, and if they haven't, they should, there are, you know, we are a town that is a collection of small hamlets and villages, whether or not they're legally defined as that, that have, certain, local continuity of style, except for the weird outlier house. And that's part of the charm of our vernacular architecture. Not trying to stifle that either. Just want to make sure that people go to the go to the architectural standards, develop architecture out of them, not simply say, well, I saw a picture of it, this is what we can build.
So one of the best examples I think I could articulate, Jay, is in the age restricted area. They had the smaller, uh, I think there's 2 and 3 bedroom single family homes, and those looks were definitely different, more cottage style looking. And again, that's a neighborhood that is in the most southern uh, area of the lot of this very large development, which I think is over 1,200 acres, maybe 2,000 acres in the entire uh, property. And would hate to see, want to make it clear that that neighborhood has its permissible look. And I think I've made my point, but I think that's what we're stating here collectively, that uh, it can't just say just for the entire PID, that there needs to be some kind of distinction based on neighborhood, in my mind.
Well, for now, we don't have that. The only neighborhood that has a distinction is the Commons.
Right.
But are you,
Understood.
maybe I'm mishearing you, Ken, are you suggesting that maybe we'd add a sentence that would say that designs can be tailored for each neighborhood so that we know we have, is that where you're going?
Well,
Or am I?
that's my thinking, that again, that it won't be this hodgepodge that you go from one block within visual sight of the next is industrial, then the next one is Tudor, and the next one is more of I don't know, some kind of a classical type home. I'm not using as Bonnie would say, an architectural style name right now, but that uh, you're encouraging some of this diversity by neighborhood, but that at least each neighborhood has uh, those lookalike or anti-lookalike strategies. And because there's even some neighborhoods that are townhome and a mix of townhome and single family and duplexes, and uh, again, not eliminating variety because we're trying to look for a code that's universally accepted for the entire PID. And I think that's what's needs to be preserved here. This is a really big property, and diversity can be encouraged without a hodgepodge.
So Ken, I think I appreciate you talking it through because I think it's the light bulb's going off in my head that that's probably a sentence or two that we may be going there, but we didn't say it. And following Jay's thought, 5 or X years from now, no one's going to know what we were thinking, nor will we remember. So maybe the sentence we need to add is something like designs may be different from neighborhood to neighborhood, but certainly within the architectural standards. However, in a particular neighborhood, they should be consistent in the design. Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's basically the notion. Yeah, and
Yeah.
um, so uh, So if there's a larger menu of product look and style, it's understood. Okay, well, it doesn't mean that every style here it can be uh, infused in one neighborhood, you know. Uh, and I think the sentences that you were just off the top of your
Yeah.
head crafting were getting to that.
Yeah, and I think where you're highlighting something that again it's obvious to us, but right, if we looking at this more contemporary style townhome, and then you look at the traditional style townhome, you might say, wow, they could put one next to another,
Right.
and you're
No,
right,
that would
we
make the
wouldn't.
neighborhood look wacky.
I know, but we don't want to give ourselves the ability to even go wacky in the future. Not that, not that we'll get there, but I think adding that kind of concept that we just talked about will avoid that, and avoid anyone wondering, could it happen?
Personally, the industrial one I actually saw didn't look exactly like that, but one of your sites
Yeah.
I was impressed with, but I can understand that if it were directly adjacent to something that was architecturally totally different, looked like Space Invaders put you know two different things, just fell from space. Uh, so again, I think I've articulated.
Yeah. No, I think we can
Could
work with
I
that.
ask a question about this? Mitch, were you saying that the different neighborhoods may have different architectural styles or that they would?
No,
I'm not.
I'm saying that the different neighborhoods, this is
Mhm.
West Village or whatever the neighborhoods are called. On the spot, you can never think of all these names. The
West
different
Terrace.
West Terrace, thank you. You'd think I would know that. That a neighborhood like West Terrace would have to have a consistent
Mm, okay.
architectural design. However, going between West Terrace and East Terrace, they could be different within their various. So if we said, and I don't know that we'd ever say this, West Terrace is going to be designed based off of this industrial look. We're not saying that. I'm just, what if? Then that would have to be the theme in all of West Terrace. We couldn't then mix and match with the more classic townhomes, and then but we could switch over to the more classic townhomes when we got to East Terrace, but then we'd have to stay with that theme. It's kind of obvious, but sometimes we have to write that stuff down because what's obvious to us might not be obvious to the next crew that's running the show from our side or your side.
Okay, and then in the very beginning, you kind of highlighted Upland Park. You said that would follow the design intent of the commons. So is that pretty much what you've decided? That's the way that's going to work?
Well, some of the homes in Upland Park are also the multifamily buildings, which are
Right.
the commons. So while that architecture is anticipated to change as it gets to Upland Park, it may not dramatically change. So I would expect, and Greg, we haven't really talked about this, but I would expect that Upland Park would have some of the consistent Tudor elements added for transitioning, as Lisa has it here on the screen.
Right. Okay.
Because that one will also have some homes that'll be somewhat similar to the commons, at least in their structural design.
Yeah, we should be careful of the words. It's just that we don't obviously no one wants cookie cutter development where everything looks exactly the same. And so, but also has to feel good, right? So I don't know how to write that. I'm sure with Hart Howerton and our legal team and Lennar, we can come up with some language to. I think we all know what we want, and we should write it down. I don't think there's any dispute about like any business terms here. It's just a matter of we need diversity enough so it doesn't look like cookie cutter, but within various themes that tie together.
You got it, Greg.
Good thing we're recording this, Greg. See? This is how the Rolling Stones and the Beatles write their songs. See, they always keep the tape recorder going. You never know when the gem is popping up.
All right, so Lisa, I think we got to the end of your presentation, and if there's any other, not any other questions, Mike, you are next up to bat, but not foreclosing any questions, just moving along.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm probably new to you. Just for the record, my name is Mike Fine, and I'm with the firm Langen Engineering. I'm definitely not new to this project. I've been involved in Tuxedo for probably over 8 years now. And I'll just quickly go through the performance standards because I don't want to bore anybody with engineering details. So if I have permission to share, I'll share with you the document so you can kind of see where our changes occurred. Let me know if you could see that.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. So this is the Tuxedo Reserve Performance Standards. Essentially, these are the engineering and construction specifications for this project in specific, and they provide information on the items you see here: stormwater management, grading, road standards, etc. And essentially, the changes that we've made are relatively simple in terms of they're updated based on what was physically and actually constructed on the site in the past, and those relate to water main and things of that nature. So we've updated it to reflect what was previously agreed to and constructed. Updated it essentially for revised regulations that have occurred over time, et cetera. So I'll just kind of go through them, but that's the gist of the changes that have been made to this document, really just to catch up with the changes in development.
Hey, Mike, just one quick interrupt. Just like myself and Lisa, this document is the same as that was submitted with Brad's submission to the town at the end of last week.
That's a question? Yes.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm guiding you. The answer has to be yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
thanks.
it is. So here's a change that we made, again, just really kind of clarifying the difference between on-site stormwater piping design versus culvert design. They are very different in terms of their design when it comes to public or technical standards that we follow. So this really just puts it in defined terms. And I believe Sean has looked at this and he's okay with the language that we're proposing here. This is adding a qualifying statement to this that any cuts or fills greater than 20 feet that would require an evaluation or recommendations from the geotechnical engineer for the project. So again, just a safeguard to the original statement that was put here. Road standards. Again, we're just referring to the smart code. So we took out, I think here there was some reference to a specific figure or table which has since been removed because the road hierarchies have changed. So this is really just referencing you back to the smart code. It just simplifies the reference. This is a sanitary peak hourly factor of safety. Again, this is just revising it to comply with what was actually approved for the project through the health department and DEC. So it's 3.3. It was originally 4. So we've just, again, caught up with what has been approved in the past on the project. We've made some revisions here. Again, there's been some regulation or standard changes to flow rates in DEC standards. There used to be a document called DEC 1988, which has now been updated to, I believe, 2018 or something like that. And they've just modified their flow rates due to water saving fixtures and things of that nature. So again, it's just updating numbers, updating the unit count, and then carrying those calculations out through this table that was originally in the performance standards. Same thing down in here. This was just a change that 2,000 gallons per minute for a 2-hour. This is a fire flow thing for multifamily dwellings and townhouses. That's a publicized standard. Water tank section, just again really updating it to what was built. This was what was built out there, around 672,000 gallons. So again, just modifying it to what's out there today. Water quality testing, again, another regulation change. I think originally the performance standards had 1.25 inches. It is now in a DEC manual as 1.5 inches. So we're just making note of that update. These things are really nothing. It's just paragraph deletions. And that's it. Those are the changes. Any questions?
Yeah, I have. This is Ken English. So I know there was having toured and been to the new wastewater treatment plant. A big uh, issue is the added capacity that will be built out over time as the project develops. I'm not really clear as to how and when that happens, but I guess my general question is, how does that capacity figure into this document, and as to when it needs to be brought online? And also, from the water supply point of view, have all the wells been mapped out as to where they would be drilled in, and that all the tests have been completed, that there is the capacity in the aquifer to service this community?
Yes. So all the wells had been previously evaluated as part of the original Tuxedo Farms development, and they all have ample both supply and flow. And I think actually most of those wells have been drilled. Whether the treatment around those wells have been constructed or not, only one well, I believe, has been constructed and is I'll say mostly complete. I don't know where it actually ended in terms of its completion, but there is one well currently in service. The answer on where is the kind of when will it be fully built out will kind of depend on how neighborhoods develop over time, and when we get to a point at which one well has reached its capacity, it would require or necessitate the need to bring a second well online, for example. And that would all be regulated and has been regulated through either the DEC or the health department. So when they issue their approval, they review our report, which we prepare and have prepared in the past and will be amended based on the revised unit count. They'll review that and say, hey, you've hit X number of units. This is supported based on the single well. And then the next neighborhood we submit, they would look at that and say, okay, now you're going to go over that threshold. You have to bring your next well online. And it would be relatively the same for sanitary sewer, where the unit count would then drive whether we would have to build the pump station, whatever pump station is delivering it to where the commons area is now, and then ultimately whether the wastewater treatment plant would have to be upgraded to handle additional flow for those neighborhoods. The other question I think you're asking is, based on our evaluation with the new unit count, we believe that we have more than adequate water, and wastewater treatment plant is more than sufficient to handle the revision in unit count and bedroom count. And
The
that
entire
evaluation
project, because I was under the
for the entire
impression
project.
that the current sewer plant, 100,000 gallons daily was going to the town, and I think it was up to like 365, somewhere around there, the capacity for the entire sewer plant. That could be wrong. It might not be as accurate as my 16.8 number for the roads, but it it was explained to me that the additional capacity, I know there's room on the lot to extend the sewer plant, and maybe Greg or somebody else
Yeah, no,
knows.
no, it's designed
Yeah.
to be extended. And at the first section, I think it's about 1,500 bedrooms, a little service, and then it's designed to be extended.
Extended, yeah,
to-
right.
Right.
Essentially, the current infrastructure is designed to handle the anticipated phase one build out from the old phasing system, both
Right.
for water and sewer. So,
Do we know which neighborhoods that was, Jay? In the
well,
phase
I
one?
mean, it's
all
wherever
the
the
phase.
pipes are, it's
Right.
not necessarily only where the current pipes are. It's whatever that original plan was. I don't remember.
Okay.
There's only so many things that fit in my brain.
Right. Yeah.
But at some point, there's going to be reach the point where you it's full, right? Or right, you've got as much as you can. It's time to finalize the next set of wells, the next chain on the sewer plant. When that event happens depends on how quickly this gets built out and et cetera.
I
Right.
guess one of my
Exactly.
questions would be, excuse me, I promise I'll stop in a second, is, where does any of that kind of injected into this plan, that at certain thresholds or something like that, if need
Jane,
be?
It's not a performance standards issue. Like
Okay.
this is what regulates how it gets built and under the guidelines of the specifications of which it gets built. That to me would fall in under, the process of subdivision, individual site plan subdivision approvals and the resolutions that you're preparing each time we come in for a neighborhood, right? For example, that would be a condition that we have to demonstrate to the town and to the health department that there's adequate capacity in both water and sewer plants, and at X threshold we have to expand it, right? That's going to be regulated by you folks in the county health department and ultimately even the DEC.
One follow-up question as well is, with the water supply, I know, for example, we just had to add some, I guess, for lack of a better term, some water softening uh, capacity to our highway department because the water that was coming out of our wells was, had enough iron in it to mold nails. So I'm not clear how that gets factored into this, or in this analysis, or when and if that's necessary.
I specifically can't answer that. I mean, that would come from Brock and Delaware Engineering, who designed the specific treatment around the water supply.
Okay.
I would imagine that's being regulated by the health department and or part of good practice and current standard design of water systems, but I don't specifically know the answer.
I was anticipating questions at public hearings. You hear of some mega developments in Orange County and people getting concerned about, the aquifer basically being tapped out, and people being concerned, will my well run dry, so to speak? And just want to be able to be prepared for those questions at public hearings and be able to make sure people understand that these issues have been considered, and we have, you know, uh, verifiable answers that attend to those questions.
Yeah, good point. I think we could definitely look back at the old, environmental impact statements and the studies that were done and pull out some data from there.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so in your footnotes of this chart, the second one you updated to the increase in units, but in the tech memo where at the first footnote, you're saying there was up to 20, what does it say? 2860 bedrooms with no cap on the age restricted, but I think we are now looking at a cap including age restricted of 3514 and possibly going up to 3560. So I think that might be helpful to put in the footnotes. Because here you're saying there's no cap, but there is a total cap now.
So Michelle, let us take a look at that with Ashley so we make sure that we marry this footnote to the tech memo.
Right.
Because
That's
you're
what
right.
Yeah.
You just pull it up. It just take me a second.
And I guess, Sean, if you have any comments of assurance that my non-engineering brain would just assure us that, yeah, all these things have been considered, and if there was a problem, you would have raised the question.
Sean, you're on mute. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can.
So I had reviewed a draft of performance standards and participated in a video conference with the applicant early last week. They had made some revisions to the performance standards. I have begun to review these to make sure that they've captured all of the original comments. But we're going to go through and do that in conjunction with your public hearing.
Great.
The way the information is presented in the tech memo is slightly different than the way it's presented here. So
It seems like the old wording before the increase in units.
We'll make them match.
Yeah,
We'll make it match.
We'll match them.
Needs this. May not even need the note here. I mean, it's, you don't need to, I just need to make sure it drives. I see your point that this is what the language was in the old
Right.
special permit. And so
Yeah.
we should either just take it out of here if it's not necessary or make it conform. That's,
Or, yeah, right, exactly. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
as we've been kind of
Yep.
saying, let's, you
Yep.
know, down the road, we're all on the same page.
Yep, makes
Thank
sense.
you.
All right.
Anything else?
I think we're done with this.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity for, as we said, the high-level presentation of the smart code design standards and performance standards, and certainly available for any questions at any time or any follow-ups would be fine. But Brad, I wanted to turn it back to you for next steps in this process as you see it, and we can, of course, check that with Larry.
Yep, sure. And Larry and I have been discussing, and look, again, thank you for everyone's good feedback tonight. Clearly, we have some clarifications and tweaks to make to all of these materials, which we will do going forward. Our ask, I believe that we're ready to schedule a public hearing based upon these documents, right? We've talked in the past that the documents don't need to be perfect to go to public hearing. So even with these additional comments and feedback tonight, which we will incorporate, we would like to ask the board to go ahead, schedule a public hearing on the special permit for June 16th, as well as to authorize your staff to make the necessary referrals to the town planning board as well as county planning. So that way those two agencies can begin their reviews and make referrals back to your board, which is required by the code. So it's really a request of the board to hopefully agree and make a determination tonight that the documents have been advanced sufficient and that they're ready and in good enough shape to begin the public hearing process, solicit comments from the public, your residents, again, the town board, planning board, I'm sorry, and county planning as, and just start that public review process while again, we continue to revise and tweak the documents over the ensuing weeks to reflect the comments that were made tonight.
I have a question, and I think Larry answered it for me this afternoon. When you're talking about referring documents, it's only to these pieces of the special permit. There's a whole nother portion of the special permit that I understand is being worked on. And so is that what we want to do? Just send these pieces over?
Well,
So-
these aren't really pieces of the special permit, Michelle. The special permit is a standalone document that represents a ultimate decision of the town board with regard to the special permit. That is not and should not be referred out for agency review. Continues to be a work in progress. And as the information continues to come in, as it has tonight, you really aren't in a position to finalize any special permit till pretty much the process has been completed to your satisfaction and you're ready to make a decision. So what gets referred out is the application together with the tech memo and its attachments. And that is primarily what needs to be reviewed and commented on, both by the two agencies, County Planning Department and the Town Planning Board, and be subjected to public scrutiny, which is through the vehicle of the public hearing.
Okay, well, thank you, Larry. I think that the term special permit keeps getting used and it gets a little confusing. Because what would you call these?
So the application is an
Application.
application for amendments to the special permit. And what we're doing, the process we're going through is considering those amendments. And we do that by subjecting them to substantive scrutiny and environmental review.
And then the other portions of the final
Special
document.
permit.
Oh, I'm sorry, you
Although-
cut out. I thought you stopped talking. Sorry.
Yeah, the tech memo is not the special permit.
Right,
Uh,
understood.
yeah, there are components of the tech memo, such as the
Oh, you're breaking up, Larry.
appended and are incorporated by reference ultimately into the special permit. But because they're a fundamental design component of the project, those get subjected to the review. But all the other, extraneous terms of the special permit, which sets up a bunch of conditions and limitations and deals with things that are essentially community oriented issues and whatnot, all will be incorporated into the special permit itself, and that again occurs when we're ready, and but it should not, that does not need to A, go, or B, wait before the public and agency review of this application continues.
So the two documents, this is Ken, that need to go to planning are the design guidelines, the smart code, and what was the third?
So Ken, let me take a shot at that. So
Please, go ahead.
what would be referred is one, the tech memo, together with the attachments, such as the traffic impact study, and there were one or two other attachments. So the tech memo in its entirety gets referred out. Second is all the design standards, which are again 4 components, right? The smart code, architectural guidelines, landscaping guidelines, and the performance standards. So that's the second document. And then third would be the preliminary plan, right? Which is a set of, 10 or 15 drawings, the regulating plan, the road hierarchy plan. So all the drawings that the board received last Thursday, that set of drawings would also be referred out. So the 3 main components, the tech memo is 1, the design standards is 2, and the preliminary plan, which although it's singular, it's really a set of about 15 drawings. So all those design drawings will get referred out as well.
And so we could anticipate some feedback, some comments, and then is there a potential one other back and forth that we respond to the comments, or do they basically say, okay, here's our comments and deal with them?
So I think like that's a decision your board ultimately makes. I think depending upon the nature of the comments, both from the planning board, county planning, and the public, right? The comments are made to your board, and you'll decide which resonate, which don't. And if they're, as a result of some of the comments, you want us to tweak our materials, we'll do so. So we don't have to respond in writing to every public comment that comes in. The ones that your board thinks are material and important, we'll address.
I guess I was mostly thinking in terms of the Orange County Planning Board. When they come back, which
So it
one of
depends.
those are absolute require
Yeah,
response.
Ken, it depends what their review, their determination is. If their determination is one that where there are required modifications, we will be required by law to consider those and either accept them and have them incorporated into the project plans or reject them. And if we reject them, state the reasons for those rejections in a resolution. So you're right that one has a little bit more of an approval imprimatur overlaid onto it than other than public or town planning comments.
The point that I think resonates with me the most here is, these three documents that are to be referred out: the tech memo, the design standards, and the preliminary plan and the associated drawings. As has been pointed out several times here, the town board doesn't need to be convinced that it's 100% tied and wrapped, that it's it's in a form that we're ready to refer it out. And of course, we want to get public comments and set public hearings, hopefully here tonight, that so we can get the feedback and respond as appropriately.
That's
So,
right. I think the major standard you want to consider in allowing this to go forward is whether you've identified any really major holes in the information that has been presented. And at this point in time, I'm not sure that we've seen that. I think Bonnie and I feel that it's allowed to go forward. But it's really up to you as the town board. But that, in thinking about it, that is what you really should focus upon. And it's always better to get this out to scrutiny as quickly as possible, because guaranteed there will be things that others see that those of us that have all been so close to this may have overlooked.
Bonnie, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, that all makes sense to me, Larry, your recommendation. I guess my question still is, all the other pieces of the special permit, are you saying that does not get subject to public hearing? Did I understand that correctly?
The decision document itself is not the subject, is not subjected to public hearing. It never has been in any iteration prior to this.
Okay,
And it would not be appropriate, yeah.
okay.
Just like a site plan resolution or a subdivision resolution by the planning board wouldn't go out for public review. It's that's your board's approving, as Larry said, your board's approving document.
I see. Okay, that's a good explanation. Thank you.
Jay, did you have a comment?
Well, much as I trust and respect Larry, he was speaking for Bonnie. Bonnie, do you concur that we're at a position where we're ready to go to public comment and outside approval on these things?
Yeah, I think at this point, there's sufficient information that it can go out for public review so that you can get additional public comment and reaction from the various agencies and, members of the public in the town. And you also will have substantive comments, but I think this is the time to now circulate and see what other reactions, what other possible changes may need to be made based on that public reaction. So the content is there. Will there be questions? Could it change? Is it perfect, as was, discussed? No, because it's, through the public process, it's subject to change.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
but
So I think we're good to go.
okay. So
So Larry, we usually have Howard to guide the town board as to whether something requires a vote from the town board. Is that what we're doing here this evening? Actually putting a motion to.
Yeah, I would, well, the scheduling of the public hearing requires a motion, and I would also include within the same resolution or the same motion, authorization that the application, be referred to, the county, planning department for, general municipal law review and to the, town planning board, pursuant to the requirements of the PID regulations.
I'll make that motion. What he said.
I'll second.
Any further discussion by the town board?
I have one question. Do we put in a deadline for hearing back from these agencies and the board, the planning board? I mean, leaving it open-ended, it seems
Yeah,
problematic.
my understanding, is that I know for a fact, at least with respect to, the county, there's a deadline in the statute.
I
Right,
thought it was
30
30
days.
days or something.
It's 30 days. Do we have a similar one with the planning board?
I believe we do. I just don't recall off the top of my head because it's under the old procedures what it specifically is. But I believe there is. But I know the applicant is planning to get together with the planning board soon, just very quickly, and hopefully the planning board will be able to accommodate that.
Should there, or Brad, is there normally some kind of affidavit which indicates all the agencies or the referrals that were made? I guess it's being sent to the county and to the planning board essentially.
Yeah, this isn't like a seeker involved in, this is not like an EIS type circulation. So the two mandatory referrals are to county planning and the town planning board. I know Sloatsburg will also get public notice.
Okay.
So that's the requirement of the referrals. And the notice will get mailed out to, residents within a certain radius of the site and be published in the town's official newspaper.
Okay.
I also want to address, I'd sent out an email earlier today to try and give the town board members some context on this. But there is also another component on the table, which is the need to amend the original local law that grandfathered Tuxedo Reserve under the PID regulations that were then in effect. And that needs to be amended, not the least of which reasons is that it recites the caps that are required as part of the special permit. And we want to make sure that those caps get, reflected in that local law. So we have a draft local law prepared. There's a resolution of introduction that's been prepared. The complicating factor there is that we need, on that one, we need 10 days from the at least 10 days before the public hearing is held, we need the publication to go out. So in discussing this with Brad today and going around on the schedules, we were looking at having the town board, I believe, has set aside 2 dates for public hearing time. One is the 16th of June. And when I say set aside, I mean, I think they have the school reserved for those times.
Yeah, we anticipated, the potential and just
Yeah, the
reserve the space,
16th of June and 23rd of June. We'd like to, 23rd of June is likely to be a continuation of the hearing on the special permit. But on that day, we could also have the hearing on that local law. But in order to do that, we probably need a 10 or 15-minute special meeting on, say, the 9th of June, in order to get this local law on your desks and for you to authorize the public hearing. As you're well aware, because you've all done the local law drill, you need to have this on an introductory local law on your desks for action. And so if if you're willing, the 9th would be a good time. Again, a very brief special meeting to just accomplish that, so we can get this teed up for the 23rd.
I just want to be clear, Larry. So we have a town board meeting on the 13th, which the 10-day thing seems to line up perfectly for the 23rd. Would that still require us to have a special meeting on the 9th, or can we?
Well, except it doesn't, Ken, because you would have to publish the notice on the 13th in order to meet 10 days if you're having the hearing on the 23rd. So you wouldn't make it. So
Okay.
So that's why we had suggested an earlier time, and the 9th would allow the notice to get prepared and go out. Without a last minute kind of rush, or which always risks making a mistake. So that's why we kind of chose that. So, but it's up to you guys.
No, it sounds like you've worked it out, and I could just poll the town board right now. It sounds like we need a 15-minute WebEx meeting, and that probably could be accommodated. Is that accurate, what I'm saying, Larry?
Yeah, and we'll have the introductory local law to you in the next day or so. So you'll have it. And it'll, you can, any questions, pretty straight and base forward. It's basically the same local law that has been done the previous times. And so it'll just reflect that new cap language.
So the 9th, we're really just authorizing a public hearing on the local law.
On the 23rd, yeah, on the
Right.
local law.
So
And so the 23rd would be, you would start that meeting off with the hearing on the local law. And I wouldn't expect that much comment with regard to that, only because it's tied directly in to the special permit, really. So and then once that is over, you would go right back into the continuation of the hearing on the special permit, where I expect most of the comment is going to be addressed.
Sounds right to me. I mean,
That makes sense to everybody, or?
Tonight, are we just voting to have you draft the law? Isn't that step one?
Well, wait a minute.
we
got a
have a
motion on the
motion
table.
already. Yeah, we got a motion on
Yeah,
the
there's
table.
a motion on the table, so, and then we
Are
can,
you suggesting that we amend that, or we have a second motion for the local law?
no, just, we'll have a second amendment for,
Second motion.
second motion for the local law.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion that's on the table was to authorize the application be referred to the county, is it the county planning board? Did I get that right? And the town's planning board.
Right.
I'm not sure what the county authority is called. Is it the county planning board?
I think it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
Right.
to the county planning
And I
board.
I would amend it to also include the scheduling of public hearings on the 16th with a continuation on the 23rd.
So we're melding that into one motion.
That's for the
Right,
special permit, yeah.
right.
for the
Okay.
special permit part.
Amendments,
Right.
special permit amendments.
Special
Thank
permit
you.
amendments.
Yeah.
I think we're still open for discussion, and I think we just had it. But I don't want to cut anybody off if they still have some burning phrase they want to state. Okay, I'm taking that silence as golden. So
The
that's
second,
the motion.
Oh,
I
I'm
think we
sorry.
want to vote on that, Larry, before we
I think we
lose
need
that
to vote,
momentum.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is
I didn't
Karen.
hear from Deirdre. She said aye.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. 5 ayes. The ayes have it. All right. That was that
Yeah,
motion.
did you get, is it done, that one?
That one's done.
Okay, I'm moving fast because I haven't eaten dinner. So,
All right.
okay.
Move it.
Okay, so the next motion would be to authorize the preparation of a draft local law that will continue the grandfathering of Tuxedo Reserve under the prior PID regulations, and to schedule a special meeting for June 9 to consider introducing that law and the scheduling of a public hearing on June 23rd.
And Larry, just to clarify, as we talked earlier, would that local law, the draft, also be included in the referrals that go out to county planning and the planning board now? So they get one package, so we don't have to do it twice.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that'll be the text of the law, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what Larry just said on the second motion regarding the June 9th special meeting and
I'll second it.
the draft local law. I'm sure perhaps Larry, you could write that up to submit to Marissa, but
Yeah, of course,
based on what you just stated,
of course.
Maria just seconded it, seconded on my motion. So now it's open for the town board discussion. Any further discussion?
Only one thing.
Please.
It's the evening of the Orange County Land Trust annual benefit. So when can we do this? I mean, I can probably call in, but
Yeah, it's going to be a WebEx, of course. And what time does that function start, Michelle?
6 o'clock up in Middletown.
Can we do it at 5, Ken?
I certainly can.
Yeah,
I'll-
5 is
I have
fine.
to leave at 5, but I can call in.
I could do 4:30.
Me
I
too.
can-
I can do
I can do 4:30.
I'm not sure if Jay can. Doesn't look like it.
Maybe, sure. Just everybody talk
How about
fast.
4:45?
Oh, doesn't matter. If it's
45
before,
is
if it's
good.
before 5 o'clock, it's all equally
Dicey.
inconvenient for me. So, that's fine. I mean, how about the 8th instead of the 9th?
I'm good with the 8th.
I'm actually not great on the 8th, but
I can't go. I can't attend on the 8th.
let's shoot for the 9th
That's fine.
at 5. Michelle, you call in. It's going to be a real quick meeting. We're all going to have the paperwork in front of us. We'll know. We're really just taking a vote, right, on the 9th. Just
Exactly.
formalizing the
Yep.
process. So,
You can answer any questions that you have about the subject matter and
and you could pose those in an email ahead of time to Larry.
Right.
Yeah.
If 5 is inconvenient for Michelle, if earlier is better, let's do it earlier.
So let's,
I can.
It doesn't matter. Middle of the afternoon, I could do it at lunchtime. I mean, if it's before, it doesn't matter to me.
I mean, is calling in allowed? Am I allowed to vote as a call in?
Yeah,
according
we're
to
still
the
under
state law?
we're still under executive.
All right.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
not having videos, okay? All
Yeah.
right.
Yep. Right. That's what I understanding. Yep. So yes. So I think that was our discussion, and so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Unanimous. None opposed. Okay. Just for if we need to go back, this showed up on our recording around 2 hours and 30 minutes. If we need to go find where these gems of wisdom reside on the tape, we can find them right there.
Ken, I can send Marissa language tomorrow on both if you'd like.
That would be great. That's what we
So
need.
could be-
And so I think we've accomplished a lot over the many months, but even especially tonight, reviewed months and months of very hard work and to be continued. we've got it to the point where we can refer it out and get further comments. Look forward to, so now the public hearings will be in person. And as of now, executive order expires on the 14th. So the 16th and the 23rd will be in-person meetings exclusively at the Tuxedo School. We think we're using the multi-purpose room because the auditorium is under some renovations, but won't be determined. The construction is being scheduled as we speak. There is a possibility we'd be using the auditorium, but regardless, it will definitely be at the George Grant School, Tuxedo. We'll clarify that by email to everybody and through the town's website and notices from Marissa. Marissa, did I get all that right? If you're still hanging in there diligently, but
I'm here, and that was correct. Yes.
all right. I knew you'd be there. Okay, so just make a note of that. I think we'd probably want to start the public hearings around 6, not at 5, because people might be coming from work. And if we started at 6 and could anticipate them running as late as 8 or 8:30. So are all town board members and everyone who needs to be there understanding of that?
We have to be, I'm sorry, at 6?
6 o'clock.
Okay.
So that's 2 Thursdays in a row. Thursday crazy. Buy one, get one free. Thursday the 16th and Thursday the 23rd at the Tuxedo School, either the high school or the what they call the multi-purpose room. I'll make that clear over the next week. And
Hey, Ken, if we can have, we need to, in the public hearing notice, which will have to go out quickly, we'll need to specify the location. So,
absolutely. Marissa, I think we probably already have that determined. Just to make sure we get the address right and the naming correct.
if it's on the same, if it's 2 possibilities on one campus, tell us where on that campus it's
Yeah,
actually gonna be.
we'll specify, when school is called. It'll be clear. Marissa's.
So Marissa, Larry, let's coordinate that tomorrow, because as we talked earlier, tomorrow the notice needs to go to the paper for publication on Monday, and we need to get the notices mailed on Monday. So let's just finalize that public notice tomorrow, please.
That was to Marissa, right?
Marissa and Larry, the 3 of us will coordinate tomorrow.
Excellent.
Got it.
So I think we're at the very popular adjournment bullet on the agenda. Am I correct?
Yes.
Who needs to eat? Me, Larry, Maria's dogs, I'm sure, are long past hunger. All right. I make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:26. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Michelle. All in favor? Everybody can
Aye.
say aye, even those who aren't on the town board. You can all say aye too. Why not? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you. Great
Thank
job,
you.
everybody. Thank you. Buenas noches.
Recording, Ken.
Oh, yeah. Stop recording. Thank you.